Welcome back and happy Friday to you. It's the Trigger, Rich Bontrager, back for 2 p.m. with the Trigger. Just wrapping up a 5-day summit. And today we're going to be talking about another 1-day summit coming up next week. But just wrapped up the Beyond Trauma Summit. We're working with Market Appeal and Shannon Peel. A marvelous week of talking about trauma, but how you overcome it, how you face it, how you heal from it, how do you turn the bad into something glorious. And it's all messy. It was a great week, amazing speakers and leaders, and we're going to produce a book off of that. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Same thing is coming up next week, and it's the equity inclusion type of discussion. We're going to have a 1-day summit. More on that in a few moments. Also, don't forget, we're here every day to help you shine on camera, to shine on stage, to help amplify you and your brand, because your brand matters, your voice matters, and we want you to shine brighter. That's why we have amazing guests on here as well. We want to give them the platform. We want to give them a little stage and a little microphone to go out further and further and further. And Katie McLaughlin is going to be joining me here today. Katie is on a mission to stop workplace hurt. I love that. Cultural change. She's a catalyst for that. She wants to make things happen. She's in leadership development. She's also an executive coach and speaker and a master facilitator. She might just take the microphone over for you and just take over today. Katie McLaughlin, welcome to 2 p.m. with the Trigger. Great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today. And thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, and again, you can drop in the chat, ask questions if you want along the way. But coming up next week, we are going to do a Market Appeal 1-day summit. You will be one of our 5 featured speakers on the equity inclusion. So just right there, first of all, why in the world do you want to speak on that?
Well, I spent a long time in the workplace, in corporate companies of all size. And, in my own experience, I found that there were a lot of companies who were like, oh, we really care about our people. But the actual actions people took weren't reflective of that. Be a lot of like two-faced things. You might even experience kind of rejection or being judged. And I knew that I needed to take my work a step further, start my own business, and bring in my whole entire holistic background, not just my work in the workplace, but also my theater background into the work. And I find that really helps us to go deeper when it comes to equity work and inclusion in the workplace, because it's not enough to just like define equity and create, processes and policies. We have to take action. And so I'm super passionate about taking action. That's how I'm a change catalyst. So that's what you can get when you work for me. And hopefully you'll get some good actions out of today's conversation.
So the first thing you notice about Katie is she has this magnetic smile. Go to her profile on LinkedIn and she's like, and so it's very contagious. And I'm sure when you facilitate, when you lead, I'm sure your personality does elevate the game right away in the room, doesn't it? You intentionally probably draw them out quicker because of how you are, very animated and exciting and passionate, right?
Yeah. Well, everybody's been to a boring training, right? And, it's the reason why we like don't go or don't take trainings. And so when I was a, kind of formal trainer within the corporate world, I realized I had to really make changes and I had to, be larger than life and draw people in, not just with like really high energy, but also really intentional focus and care. So people knew I was really present in that conversation.
Well, and with it, you touched on it, but now I want to go there. The theater is now brought into what you do. Business and theater. Again, I love theater. I come out of theater. I come out of media. I know the power of that. That's why I coach and do what I do. But interesting that you're bringing it into the business sector. Explain how you use those tools to bring more joy, happiness, fulfillment into the work environment.
So a lot of people might start to be familiar with kind of the use of improv, the concept of yes and in the workplace when it comes to kind of opening your mind to the perspectives of others. And I take that a step further with a group of techniques called image theater, which allow us to use our bodies, our facial expressions to create larger than life images of what's really going on for us behind the scenes during some of our interactions in the workplace. And I saw in my own self the impact that I could make on different people because of my theater background, because of my education in how to think about someone's motivations and how to think about maybe how I'm acting and what those actions said about me, what those actions created as far as results. And if we don't address the emotional part of what's going on for us, then we're going to be acting from that emotional place, which might be from a place of hurt or trauma, right? There's some really interesting connection here between the Beyond Trauma Summit and the Embracing Equity Summit.
Mhm.
And when we act from those places, our actions aren't getting the results we want. So we have to kind of start back at the beginning. And a lot of people aren't doing that in a way that is safe and is a way that's also kind of fun. It should be fun to learn how to connect with people uh, and go deeper.
Well, and again, I'm really glad you bring this up because a lot of the equity inclusion, and again, I'm not knocking what I'm about ready to say, but I think there is a limit to the conversation so far. It's been on the
Mhm.
rules, the regulations, the procedures, the male, female, to not, those things, which are very, very, very important. But what you're bringing in now is there's also a nonverbal body language that we communicate in this space. And we can say all
Right.
the right things. And sometimes with the way we portray our body is saying something completely different. So the fact that you're bringing this theatrical body and creative side, I think is very important. Do people catch on to this with you? Do they understand why this is so important? Or does it kind of go past their head a little bit?
Well, because I'm using this type of theater, which for those of you watching on video, a quick example would be create a larger than life image when you are being asked to go into an equity training. Okay. And you might come up with a, "Mm," right? That image probably says a lot of words, right? Maybe I want to run away. I'm putting my
Mhm.
hands up in front of me to kind of like protect myself, right? But I might also be, which might be a curiosity, but also a skepticism, right? And so because I'm using theater in that way,
Yeah.
we it's something people aren't used to, right? And so that's been part of my journey as an entrepreneur is really helping people to see, touch, feel what is this method and why can that help us, right? Um, so that's really been my journey as an entrepreneur is to like help people realize that there's different ways that we can tackle these same problems.
Well, and again, there's even the simple things of, the closed body language, the open body language. There's the skeptical. There's
Mhm.
all these different things. As a facilitator,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Like, not again, please, please, just shut up.
Right.
There's all of that. As a facilitator, do you read the room and do you ever stop and say, by the way, hate to call you out, Steve, but Steve, your body language is doing exactly what I said.
Mm.
Do you ever go that far or not in the moment?
So one of the things that I really pride myself on as a facilitator is creating an environment of safety. And it is not always safe to be called out, right? And so the first thing that I do when I was thinking about how to apply this method to the way I facilitate, to the workplace, was realizing that performance feels scary to a lot of people, right? And I'm sure that you deal with this in a lot of the work that you do. And so I don't want people to think that because I'm using theater that it's this performance. So everybody is responding to that prompt at the
Mhm.
same exact time. And that allows us to fast track empathy, emotional intelligence by feeling it in our bodies and then seeing it and starting to recognize things. And so, you know, there might be some times where it would be appropriate for me to say, take that larger than life, really challenge yourself to make it bigger. Right. And I'm going to say that to everybody because we can all benefit from that same kind of coaching that I might want to give to an individual. I will call somebody out if they're not participating, right? And, encourage them carefully to say, hey, nobody's nobody's judging you here, right? We're all doing this. Um, But before we get people to like really do deep revealing work like this, we have to
Mhm.
have fun. So I start with a variety of games. We do a lot of like shaking it out, and even just experiment, especially on Zoom when I do virtual training. We experiment with like, cool, let's just raise our hands. When do you ever raise your hands in a Zoom meeting? Never,
Right,
right?
right.
What if you got close to the camera? What if you know, backed really far away? Just play with that relationship just for a few moments, right? So we can start that process and moving forward.
Well, and again, I coach all those media things. There's so much more you could do here. There's so much more in this space, and people are. They're like, "Hi," and like, "No, there's so much." So I totally. And again, within even the work environment, there's so much more that we should be able to express and bring forth of our natural passions, gifts, and things. We're calling this upcoming one-day summit with 5 amazing speakers, the Embrace Equity. Why do people not embrace equity? Why are we resistant to embrace this very important thing that sometimes we're just colorblind, we're naive, or whatever, but embrace equity? Why do we pause?
Mm. Many of us think that it's not our jobs. We have been seeing, all these HR teams, talent, people teams, whatever you call it in your organization, setting these policies. Companies are making at the executive level these kind of big statements. And many people don't realize, how does that apply to me? What am I actually supposed to do with this information?
Yeah.
And so often, right? So often these trainings that we offer people are kind of just like information sharing. And doesn't translate to actual actions. And so my philosophy is that we need to be getting real skills, opportunities to rehearse for the real reality that we're in, like that we're encountering, and notice that real deep culture change, which is what the workplace and all of us are clamoring for, that change starts with each of us and we can each make an impact. So that's why I wanted to be part of this Embrace Equity Summit, to talk about and start to plant the seed of how each of us can take those tiny actions that all add up to big results.
So there's a lot of us talking about the theory of this equity inclusion. I'm thinking what you're presenting is an experience in teaching and training. You're very experiential to bring it to a more reality. Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that, especially in groups, whether it's your team or maybe a cohort of leaders, uh, as a group, we can start to uncover what are those barriers, what's that specific resistance for our group that we're facing when it comes to doing any kind of equity work or actions. And then we can start to talk about, okay, what actually are those barriers? What drives us to feel afraid? What drives us to feel like we have to protect ourselves? And what are the ways that we start to create those new environments, those new, like I said earlier, kind of shared work agreements of, here's how we can start to engage with each other in a more inclusive, equitable way that kind of celebrates our uniqueness and our diversity.
I bet you have a lot of aha moments in those sessions. People go, "I thought I knew this stuff, but aha!" Is
Mhm.
it? Does that happen a lot where people have that light bulb moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not just doing this experiential stuff. We're going to debrief. We're going to talk about, brainstorm. I'll have, big sticky papers and we'll write down our learnings and our agreements that we create. Some of the best aha moments come when I ask people to step into the images of other people. So maybe you've created your image, you see everybody else's image. A common thing I ask folks to do is pick an image that you think is very different from yours, and now create that image. And I want you to start to notice, are there any similarities to how that new image that you didn't create initially and your image, are there any similarities to how that feels? Is there a tightness in your body in a similar way? This? Have you ever felt this before? And that really creates these like aha moments to realize we're unique, but we're not actually that different.
Yeah. That's powerful when you get to that place. It's extremely powerful when you get there. Katie, what is going to be your topic? Can you tease us out a little about your topics? We want to come and join you on March 14th.
Yeah, my topic is equity every day. Small actions, big results. And I'm really helping us come out of that world of theory, come out of that world of policies and procedures, and come at equity from the perspective of ownership, that I can make a difference. And I'll be sharing a few quick actions that you can get started with, regardless of where you are in the workplace, what your team looks like. And then we'll be talking about kind of how you can go deeper, whether that's working with me to do coaching or training with your team, or I also have, a guide that I'd be happy to share with listeners today on how to take that further and use data to help you understand what your specific team is asking for in terms of equity behaviors, inclusion behaviors.
Marvelous. Katie, what's the best way to get in touch with you? We've been sharing your LinkedIn, but what's the best way to follow up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is a great way to follow up with me. Go to McLaughlinMethod.com, sign up for my email list. I'm regularly sharing these kind of podcast experiences, blog articles, and you can learn more about the different offerings that I have and how I work with teams, leaders, and companies.
Thank you, Katie, for taking the time to join us here at 2 p.m. with the Trigger. Don't forget, that's the QR code right there. It's going to be March 14th, 11 p.m. Eastern. We're going live. It will be in a private group. You must register to join us for this. And with this, there'll be a book that's going to be produced on this entire Embrace Equity. And there'll be 4 other speakers along with Katie. I'll be there hosting as well. Shannon Peel from Market Appeal will be there. It's going to be a great time, but you don't want to miss it. Come and join us as we embrace equity and learn a ton about what that really means in the workplace, and with great, amazing leaders, facilitators like Katie being there. As always, if you want to learn more about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're helping you shine better on camera and stage, go to rockthestagemedia.com. That's rockthestagemedia.com. Or if you want to contact me to work with you on one of your virtual events, I MC, I host, I do a lot of stuff. I love to do it. I just got back from traveling last week, jumped right into a summit. I love to help you and your company shine. Contact me, Rich, at richbontrigger.net. I would love to talk with you about the help to get you rocking better with your events. Until Monday on the Trigger, Rich Bontrager, this is 2 p.m. with the Trigger.